Now, one of the most important characteristics a person needs is humility, and understanding when they have made a mistake. You try and hold yourself to a certain standard, but you fail to apply this consistently throughout whatever it is you're doing. Not long ago, I made a tier list for the movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and while I stand by most of what I said, there were definitely mistakes made. Certain movies were ranked higher than others based more so on spectacle rather than more objective qualities, competent storytelling, strong writing, narrative consistency, that sort of thing. I made it clear at the start of the video that objectivity would take priority over subjectivity, and I should have done more to maintain this. So let's fix that, shall we? I'll start by redoing my top 5 best MCU movies, and hopefully this video will give you a stronger reflection of my approach to movie critique. Alright, enough waffle, let's begin. Moving at number 5, we have Guardians of the Galaxy, and this movie takes C-list comic book characters and gives them more depth and development than some of the more well-known heroes we've seen on the big screen. I mean, the majority of this movie relies heavily on character moments, with each Guardian given plenty of attention and craft, wherein their opposing ideals conflict, or their internal struggles complement those of the people around them. The dynamic and chemistry between these characters feels genuine, it's never forced or contrived. This is a character-driven movie. Therefore, if the characters work, then so does the movie. From a narrative sense, it's strong. The story is simple and well-paced. The dialogue is golden at times, and this adds another layer of brilliance to the characters. I guess the main issue with this movie lies in its villain. Ronan is one character who is not fleshed out or developed during this film. He's a single-serving character throughout most of the movie. We needed to see more from his side of the conflict with Xandar, and with the introduction of Thanos, any real substantive or layered personality we could have had was lost. From then on, his arc just turned into a big pissing contest essentially with Thanos. Ultimately, this is a strong movie that holds up very well, especially against the current MCU. Number 4, and this might be interesting to some people, is Avengers Infinity War. And the reason I say that is I myself rank this movie as my number 1 in the tier list video, and a lot of people consider it as the best MCU movie. Having rewatched Infinity War, along with the franchise as a whole, I'd say it's probably my favourite MCU movie, but from a writing standpoint there are others which outclass it. Let's start with a standout of this movie, and that is Thanos. The Russo brothers have proven that they can write a complex villain, balancing controversial elements, leading us to feel sympathetic for Thanos at times, even though we absolutely shouldn't. Now, I tried to separate Infinity War Thanos from Endgame Thanos because they are two very different characters, and by different I mean Endgame has Thanos from Wish. But honestly, all the characters are both understood and respected, with the writers giving us the usual action and escapism we crave in these movies, and then delivering the crushing sense of reality in the climax. The audience engages with the fiction, it doesn't feel nonsensical or broken. The abundance of characters actually helped with the pacing of this movie, it reduced the amount of useless filler that's become mainstream now. Incorporating so many storylines and plot dimensions is no easy task, but for the most part the Russo brothers kept the spectacle without sacrificing the storytelling, and that's something that Endgame would be unable to replicate. Unfortunately, some major plot points have aged poorly due to the time travel elements of Endgame and the catastrophe that was the Loki TV series. This is not the fault of Infinity War, however the issues are still present in the movie. I suppose it's just not as tightly written as some of the others on this list, and I understand that this is harder for a movie connecting plot threads that span 10 years of a franchise. But I have to be fair and impartial. This is a good movie. I really enjoyed it. Now, we have Iron Man. Back to where it all began. I could say with certainty that Phase 1 was the strongest in the MCU in terms of writing and consistency of writing. It makes sense. I mean, there were fewer character arcs and plot threads to connect and maintain continuity with. It still baffles me that people place the likes of Iron Man 2 and 4 amongst the worst MCU movies, when both of these are better than almost everything in Phase 4. Having said that, Iron Man is not a movie that's spoken poorly of, nor should it be. It is phenomenal, and considering this is Jon Favreau's first superhero movie, he did a damn good job. You essentially had 2 hours of tight screenplay, with each conversation either building on character development or moving the plot forward at a concise, logical pace. The CGI and special effects in this film are some of the best that the MCU has seen, and the practical suits of Iron Man make it look better than the nanotech suits we have now. I mean, good lord, that suit-up scene is awesome. You know which one I'm talking about. Robert Downey Jr. was born to play this role, and I don't think they could have cast a better actor. He raised a B-list comic character to one of the biggest characters in Marvel. Jeff Bridges is a great antagonist with a strong menace and intimidating presence. Iron Man is a really well-made movie, and the only reason it's not taking the number one spot is because it only has one really strong character arc for us to enjoy in itself, and the next two movies will balance a multitude of well-written characters, including Tony Stark himself. The runner-up, Captain America Civil War. Oh boy, this movie is underrated. Now, before we start, yes, it is the best Captain America movie. For the record, I love The Winter Soldier, and this love resulted in me ranking the movie much higher than it should have been from an objective perspective of writing quality and plot feasibility. I think it's important to mention that there's a difference between a movie being liked and a movie being good. The Winter Soldier is one of my favourite MCU movies, but I have to admit that it is poorly written, especially compared to some of the other ones and the films on this list. The plot armor and contrivance is insane at times. Civil War, on the other hand, succeeds in terms of writing quality, and I also enjoy it very much. It's one of the most well executed movies in this franchise. It takes the elements from the comics, which, by the way, I don't think are very good. I didn't enjoy the comics very much, but makes the right choices in making the conflict believable and more ambiguous in terms of who is truly in the right. You have the characters of Steve Rogers and Tony Stark. Both hold opposing ideologies, and both are convincing in their arguments, or their reasoning. The connection of Bucky to Tony's past opens up an emotional side to his character, something that was sorely lacking in the comics. The tone is perfect. They gave enough attention to the main plot and each subplot, leading to the story of the movie being well crafted. Zemo is one of the best villains in the MCU. Sometimes it's nice to have characters with simple, understandable reasoning for their actions. Black Panther is a far better character in this movie than in his own. His introduction is epic. This movie was a turning point in the MCU. The events that occur would set up plot lines in almost every other movie leading up to Infinity War. I'd say Civil War has one of the highest rewatchability factors in the MCU, and it takes a deserved spot near the top of this list. Now, number one, and this was tough. The top three in this list alternate in terms of writing strength, but for me, the best movie in the MCU is The Avengers. It is airtight from a plot sense. It's still used today as a successful formula for superhero team-ups, and for good reason. This was a huge breakthrough for the superhero franchise. It brought together beloved characters that had never been done on such a grand scale. Joss Whedon managed to balance the individual storylines and personalities of each Avenger in a way that the character development blended nicely into the story. The discussions and dialogue between various characters is outstanding. The ideals and desires of each Avenger were still in their early stages, but the seed for the potential conflict, or the inevitable conflict, between them had been planted well. And of course the introduction of Tom Hiddleston's Loki. The real Loki, not this lapdog we currently have. Man, this guy had serious menace and a powerful aura in this film. His presence was established from the moment he was introduced, and the manipulation of the Avengers that followed, playing on their fears and relationships, is both in character and necessary for pushing the plot forward in a way that it is neither contrived nor nonsensical. The CGI, similar to Iron Man, has aged really well. The directors knew when to implement it accordingly, but also when special effects would be optimum, practical effects. The Battle of New York is arguably the most well-written fight sequence in the MCU, with our heroes establishing their respective roles and using strategy to conduct the defense of the city. And this is something that future movies would fail to include. The actual strategy, the planning out of the Avengers during this film, all having and knowing their specific roles and sticking to them, that is important.
All right, listen up. Until we can close that portal, our priority is containment. Martin, I want you on that roof, eyes on everything, call out patterns and strays. Stark, you got the perimeter. Thor, you gotta try and bottleneck that portal. Slow him down. You and me, we stay here on the ground. We keep the fighting here. And Hulk. Smash.
As I said previously, it was difficult to separate these top three movies, but considering Avengers was the forerunner for connecting many plot and character threads in a competent way, I would have to give the top spot to this masterpiece of a superhero movie. Alright, well that's part one of this top five. Next week I'll try and release the top 5 worst MCU movies, because even that in my tier list video I look back on it and think it needs a bit of alteration. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking, subscribing and turning on notifications. As always, thank you guys very much, those of you who are tuning in. and I will see you all in the next video. Take care.